in the middle of a game. There's a few parents, and the gym was very quiet, and they are playing away. And he did not feel that this particular official was doing what they should be doing to teach these kids and to serve them well. And so in the middle of this very quiet gym, I believe he yelled something quite loudly about, "You need to be better." And my daughter was over by Coach Haefeli, and she said, "Coach Haefeli, is that Mr. Haefeli?" And of course, Delia was just rolling her eyes or something. But I think the thing about that is John wanted what was best for kids. It was a great example. And he didn't do it in a disrespectful, but if you needed to do better, he was going to tell you you needed to do better. And if it benefited children, that is what he was going to do. He kept you on your toes, and that made us all better.
Welcome to the Weld Together podcast by United Way of Weld County, where we share stories about what's possible when people in a community come together for good. I'm your host, Diana Smith, and today we have a very special episode for you. Today, we remember, honor, and celebrate the extraordinary life of John Haefeli, a dedicated husband, father, advocate, and beloved member of the Northern Colorado community who passed away in 2025. In this episode, we look back on a life well lived through the eyes of four people who were close to John. Pam Hungenberg, a member of the United Way of Weld County Board of Directors. Julie Hill, Executive Director of the Success Foundation. Dr. Deirdre Pilch, Superintendent of Greeley-Evans School District No. 6. And Melanie Woolman, CEO of United Way of Weld County. Thank you, ladies, for joining us in this special edition of the podcast. Melanie, why don't you get us started in telling us a little bit about John for those people who may not have had the pleasure of meeting him in person?
Yes. John Haefeli was many things. And I think the one that he was probably the most proud of and that he dedicated most of his life to was being an educator. He was an educator with School District 6 for quite some time, but he was also a coach. He was educating and sharing his skill set with folks, young folks in particular, in that way. He was a volunteer. He served on many different boards and was always giving his time to different things. He served, of course, on the school board and on the board of United Way of Weld County. That is where I got to meet him. And I am really grateful for the time that I did get to know John. He was always just wanting to share his passion and his expertise with others in any sort of avenue or way that he could. That's just who he was. And he truly dedicated his entire life to doing that.
He leaves an incredible legacy. If you're looking for a definition of a public servant, I think he would be a good one.
You know, I was trying to think about that. I knew John later better. I worked for UNC Athletics for about 11 years. And so I believe I first became acquainted with John and Delia Haefeli when I worked at UNC. Delia continues to be one of my very best friends. So through Delia, I got to know John even better at that time.
And Delia and John were married for 31 years, and she also has lived such a life of service as well.
They really were a team, and I think he would definitely want that message as well. He referred to her always as Darling Delia, and they really complemented each other well, very much a team.
In your experience with them, and from what you know of them, where do you think that impulse to serve came from? I mean, you know, did they grow up in families that were service-oriented?
They did. John's mom was really involved. And so I would think, don't you guys think that's where he got a lot of his desire to help and give back to the community?
Yes, Pam. So why don't you share with us really quickly, how did you know John?
My husband played baseball with him and they went to school together. I'm from Washington State, so I didn't know anything about John until my husband introduced him to me, and we really clicked. And he was pretty ornery, and so we had a fun relationship.
Deirdre, I wondered if you might share one of your earliest memories of how you got to know John.
Well, John was one of the school board members who hired me just over 11 years ago. He was very diligent. He called everybody he knew in my former district, and then he would ask them to give him 4 more names and phone numbers. And so we could call 4 more people. And then he just kept calling people. And I had people calling me and saying, Deirdre, who's this Haefeli guy. And so I couldn't wait to meet him. And then, of course, I met him through the interview process. And then he was one of my school board members for 7 years. And he continued to be a school board member even after he was term limited. He continued to meet with me and reach out to me and continue to boss me around and give me advice and tell me what I should do and who I should hire and who I shouldn't hire. And so he never really stopped being a board member, and he cared very deeply, not only about me as the superintendent, but about the school district. He cared very, very deeply about this school district and this community. And I think that showed in everything that he did.
What was it like to be in his presence? I'm curious. What was it like to work with him?
John consumed the whole space in a really loving, great way. John was bigger than life, and you always knew where he stood, but he was always attentive too. He would be so attentive, and he would first want to know how we were doing and what was going well in our life before he jumped into things that he maybe wanted to talk about. But I think we all knew that when we were going to go have coffee with John, we knew it was going to be a meaningful conversation in lots of ways. Not only was it going to be meaningful in that he was trying to solve problems in our community, but he was also going to share how much he cared about you and what was going on in his life as well. He had a huge presence.
Yeah. I would laugh so much when I got together with him. Pam used the word ornery a little bit earlier, and he liked to joke around, and at least with me, he'd always give me a hard time about something, at least one thing, and every meeting. And he definitely had moments of seriousness where you could tell that passion that he had really did come out. He certainly had that lighter side, but when he was serious about something and really cared about it, you knew. But there's so often where we'd go grab a cup of coffee, and it was always early in the morning, at least for us. We typically couldn't get out of a coffee shop without at least one or two other folks stopping and saying hi to him, because they knew him, and he's always great at like making introductions and whatnot. So he really was larger than life, I think.
I thought was really cool about John was when we would go to dinner or whatever, and he would always ask the server what their name was, how their day was going, if they were in school, what they were taking. It was an amazing thing. And to see that over and over and over again, it was so genuine. And those people, they knew it. They knew that they were really cared for. And I think that's such an awesome way to live your life, that he just made everybody feel like they were worth something, that they were valued. And I can't say enough about that.
Yeah, you're right, Pam. And he was busy trying to find teachers for District 6. If that waiter or waitress might be an education major, he was going to recruit them to District 6 and help them to get here. And he was always trying to advance people and frankly, advance the school district.
And the cool thing was, my husband is an introvert. And now, since John's passed, when we go out, he has taken up that mantle, and he'll say,
"Oh,
so
wow.
what's your name?"
That's so cool.
Amazed by
That's cool.
he's not an extrovert, but he saw what John did, and it's a cool thing. And I have 12 grandkids, and he would ask about each one of them. And I can't even remember their names, but he could.
Yeah, it's amazing. My mom is in an assisted living here. And so once John got to know my mom, he's, "Can I go visit your mom?" So he would take Emma to the hospital to do her therapy dog work. And then he would take Emma over to see my mom. And the first time my mom met him, she said, "Boy, he's a lot." And I said, "Yes, Mommy, he is a lot." But I will just tell you, like everybody else, she fastly fell in love with him.
I think it's wonderful that just as I've been learning about John, there's just more and more and more that unfolds about his service in the community. And then just a smile broke out on my face when I saw that he even got his dog involved, right? That his dog, his dog Emma, is a therapy dog.
And Delia has continued that legacy. Just last week, she started taking Emma back out to UC Health to do the therapy work. So that's so cool.
I do remember a time where Delia was coaching middle school basketball. Our daughter happened to be on the team, and we were in the middle of a game. And middle school basketball is not attended real well. a few parents, and the gym was very quiet, and they are playing away. And John obviously had a also very successful career in officiating, so he had certain thoughts on officiating, and he did not feel that this particular official was doing what they should be doing to teach these kids and to serve them well. And so in the middle of this very quiet gym, I believe he yelled something quite loudly about, "You need to be better." And my daughter was over by Coach Haefeli, and she said, "Coach Haefeli, is that Mr. Haefeli?" And of course, Delia was just rolling her eyes or something. But I think the thing about that is John wanted what was best for kids. It was a great example. And so he wasn't afraid to call anybody out when they weren't doing what was best for kids. And he didn't do it in a disrespectful, but if you needed to do better, he was going to tell you you needed to do better. And if it benefited children, that is what he was going to do. He kept you on your toes, and that made us all better.
And wasn't he a basketball official for something like 40 years or something like that? So he knew what he was talking about.
He did know what he was talking about.
Yeah.
He did. It's funny,
My
Julie
second-
mentions John saying you should just do better, because when I met with him the day before he passed away, he said that to me, we should all just do better. I asked him, why? Where does this spirit to do so much come from? And he said, why doesn't everyone? We all should, shouldn't we? And then he said to me, we all should just do better. We should all do better.
One thing he did for me, and maybe he did it for the rest of you. Tell me if he did this for you guys. Did you guys get a text from him every morning?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I had to finally tell him to stop sending them so early. I'm not up at 4:30 in the morning, but my phone is on.
He sounds like a morning person.
He sent all those quotes and thoughts and verses and scripts and jokes and everything. And I expected it every morning. I look forward to it every morning. And I was up when he was doing that, because he'd get up at 3:30 and I thought he was nuts. But that's the only way he could get everything done in his day. I didn't know what to do with all that, and I knew it was going to end. So I copied them all. I photocopied them all, and I made a book of John.
That is beautiful. I love that. The Book of John.
Good old book of John.
He sounds like such a character. And I think it's noteworthy that he woke up so early, because he was involved in so many things. I just want to note just a few of the things that he was involved in. He was the chair of the Catholic Community Charities Migrant Housing Board. He was a United Way of Weld County member. He was on the board of Ames Community College, the Northern Colorado International Refugee Center, the Weld Trust Educational Grant Committee. He was a fishing guide for disabled veterans with Healing Waters. And that's just a slice of some of the things that he was involved in. Melanie, could you tell us a little bit of his involvement with United Way?
He was one of the board members that helped to hire me as well. And I had interacted with him very little prior to becoming president and CEO, but I'm grateful that I had that opportunity. And I think, as Deirdre alluded to, about the most active board member that you could have possibly had. And honestly, there are times where he'd ask me, he's like, why do more with me? Get me involved in something. I'm like, okay, John. So there are the people that some of our board members like to serve on committees, right? A finance committee or an executive committee doing the work on the back end. And John did that here and there. He served on a few different committees, but the other way that I would describe it is, I was like, there's those folks like to serve on committees. And then there's the John Haefelis of the world. They like to shake hands and kiss babies. He's at every single one of our events. He'd volunteer for all of the big volunteer opportunities that we had, and he'd be over serving meals at the shelter and at the diaper bank and those kinds of things. And I forget who it was that I was doing their board recruitment for, and I explained it that way, and they knew exactly what I was talking about because they knew him. They're like, oh, yeah, I get it. Sure, great. I can do that. We have an annual leadership giving sort of celebration that we do that's at the UNC homecoming football game, and he would MC that event. I tried giving him talking points. He handed the paper back to me. He's like, nope. And then he got the stats wrong. I was like, John, he can't be out there telling people. I was like, no, I gave you these numbers for a reason. He's like, nah, we're doing better than that. I was like, oh, John. But then the one thing that I'd be remiss if I didn't know and mention is just, and actually, Julie, I think you had a similar experience here, is that he actually connected United Way of Weld County to the firm that ultimately led our strategic planning process. And for me, that is huge. And he was like, no, Melanie, like, Kate is it. We're going to use Kate. She's the right one. And he was on the interview panel and all the things. And he had his mind made up. And honestly, and I'm grateful that he did, because John will now forever have had an impact in our organization in a much deeper way. So it was in those very visible ways that he was involved, and those less visible and in the background ways. And both of those things had a really big impact.
The Weld Together podcast is brought to you by United Way of Weld County, building powerful partnerships to bring about lasting community-wide change. Learn more at www.unitedway-weld.org.
When I think about John, he was a champion for everyone. And I know he did that for everybody. He advocated for everyone. And I think I've even learned more since he's passed that of all the things he did that maybe I didn't even know. But I think that's the best way I can describe it. He was a champion for children. He was a champion for people and a champion of our community.
Well said.
Yes.
A champion is a great descriptor. I transitioned into the CEO role and had some big shoes to fill, and it was tough at first. And we grabbed coffee one day over at the Blue Mug on 35th Ave, and we got through our whole conversation. And I think he could probably tell that I was stressed. This is a big job, lots going on, and he wouldn't let me leave necessarily. Like he stopped, right? Like we were packing up and getting ready to go, and he said, "No, you got this. You're doing a great job." And we talked a little bit more, and back to that being a champion, it was the right reminder that I needed. And none of the previous conversation was focused on any of that at all. We were talking about governance and a few other things for the organization. He could just tell. And what he said is just everything that I needed to hear in that moment. And so Julie, using the word champion, I think is a great descriptor.
There's so many stories, but I think the big thing.
I've been trying not to cry. So you
Let me help.
You got a story, Pam?
Yeah. I used to try to set John up on dates. Okay, before he was married. Okay, that was a hilarious time in our lives. So I won't go there, except that when he found Delia, he was the prize, you guys. He loved her. Oh my gosh, he loves her. And I went to one of the girls' weddings, and John walked the daughter down the aisle, and it snowed and rained and hailed while it was hilarious. Just getting there down the aisle, watching him try to shield her from all the elements.
Yeah, that's beautiful, Pam. I think there are two things about John that stick out to me. One is his advocacy for the school district. And a few years ago, during COVID and all the controversy with masking and COVID, and then right after that with controversy around books, and there were special interest groups pushing to have dozens of books removed from schools. And John just stayed steadfast to his values and to the values of the school district, and was not fearful. He spoke his mind, and he was okay when he was criticized for that, because he knew he was doing the right thing for the students in District 6 and for this school district and for this community. And so that stands out to me, as he was very strong during that time. He was always a really strong board member, but very, very strong during that time. And really, it was a time that he was looking into his last year or so on the board, and he didn't soften on what he believed and what he knew was right for the young people here in our community and for our teachers and our families. And then, of course, the other thing is just like him going to see my 86-year-old mom. Who does that? Like,
John Haefeli,
going and visiting with the 86-year-old and making her laugh and scaring her cat with the dog. And he and I both agreed that cat is like satanic that my mom has, because the cat would hiss at Emma, and Emma was scared of this little bitty cat. But who does that? Really, who does that kind of service in their life? And that's John Haefeli.
One thing I think I would be remiss in not mentioning is the Delia and John W. Haefeli Opportunity Fund. John and Delia came to the Success Foundation. Delia was the president of our board for a period of time and served on our board for many years. And I know they may have done this with other organizations in town, but came to us a few years ago. And I think they have almost 80 years combined teaching, seeing children in our schools that really do not have financial resources to participate in certain things. And so they established the Delia and John W. Haefeli Fund that has allowed us over the years here to support individual and student group needs that they may not be able to participate in these things otherwise. That is something that they wanted and will leave as a legacy. Obviously, he's already left a legacy in many areas, but that was something they intentionally wanted to do for the children of Greeley and Evans, and certainly something we're very grateful for. I think the response to John's passing with that fund has been, I don't think there's ever been more support that anyone has ever seen. And again, I think that speaks well to who he was, and I think he would be really happy with what's going on with it.
Thank you for sharing. Someone once said that when someone passes away, part of what we grieve in their loss is what they carried in the world for us. That there was something that they had within them that they uniquely brought to our lives, and that we grieve the person and we grieve what they held for us in the world. And I'm curious, we just have a few minutes left, but I'm curious what each of you might say that John held for you, or maybe what did John inspire in you? How are you thinking that you might live differently because John lived?
For me, as crazy as this sounds, right? Because I'm not that far into my professional career. But for me, he has the same kind of beliefs that change can happen and that people are good. And that change happens when the good people in the community come together. You lose sight of that at times, or you can't. I have. There have been challenging times just across the board, and I lost sight of that, I think, a little bit here and there. You have your bad days, but he never seemed to waver in that belief. And it reminds me of like how I was like in college. I thought I was going to join the Peace Corps and change the world. And I am doing that my own way. And it looks a little bit different, but he has just that sort of unwavering belief and would reignite it in me from time to time when you have a tough week or those kinds of things. And so that for me is something that I will always remember and take as a good reminder, right? Anytime I come across or think about John in the community, my mind goes there, right? That change can happen. There are everybody in the community, right? There's good people here, and it takes bringing all of those folks together to make that change. And he was so good at that.
I would say we all have to work together to share John's message. I remember many times, him saying, give your time, talent, or treasure. And I'm not sure that I've heard anyone spread that message like he did. And we need to not let that die. It doesn't have to be money, but I think his message was everyone has something to share. And truly, as Deirdre said earlier, if we all do that, we can be better. And I think that was his hope. And I think that's what we can continue to do in his memory and honor is to spread that message.
I help run the community outreach center, and every year we try to help people have good Christmases. And John and Delia, years and years and years ago, decided that they were going to adopt families. And so they would adopt these families and they would give them Christmas. And it would always be the kids, but they never, ever told anybody who they were. So I would give them the information, they'd go get it, they'd bring it back, and they would sign very generous gifts. Love, Mrs. Santa and Mr. Santa. And I think it doesn't matter who knows what good things are going on as long as everybody keeps doing something good. He never wanted anybody to focus on him. He just wanted the good to be done. So that's what I'm going to carry with me.
I think one of the things that I carry is just the importance of being present, like being with whomever you're with. It's really easy for me to get distracted by all that is happening in the world and all that's happening in the school district. And John was so good about being present, and he modeled that, and he made everybody feel like they mattered. And when they were having a hard time, he knew it, and he knew just the right encouraging words to give them, to let them know they mattered and that their work mattered and that you got this. And so I think I'll always carry that with me. John used to tell me, I will fight anybody in the parking lot for you. And I truly believe he would have. I'm glad he didn't ever have to, but I truly believe he would have. And when you have somebody who is that committed to what you're doing and to you as a human, you know, it makes you feel like your work and your life matters. And so maybe we can all just do that, make people feel like their work and their life matters, and that when we're with them, we're present there for them.
That's right. What would he like his legacy to be?
He wants all of us to do more. That was clear. Why don't we all do more? Like, what's wrong with people that they don't just do more and just do better? So that's what he would like legacy to be. Just do more. Like Julie said, give of your time or your treasures.
Yep. I completely echo that. That's part of why it was so important to us that we share the story, right? It's so easy to be generous when you see and get to know people like John, and even just hear about him. So I agree. He wanted people to be generous and to do more. And I can't imagine that he could have possibly done. I think he lived his legacy. Although certainly he probably thinks he could have, but gosh, it was incredible what he was able to accomplish. And I think my hope is just that people hear that and see that and are inspired by it.
And I think one thing that was interesting to see at his service, grown individuals who have their own children, who had him as a teacher. I think John had high expectations for everyone, but also love. And I don't know, there's a few teachers that walk into your life that really leave that lifelong lasting impact. And he did it for maybe thousands of people. John was that story. So I think that the message, again, what would he want? That everyone has the ability to be great and do something to help them be great.
At his service, he had those little bookmark things, and it says, a small amount of kindness can carry on forever, and you may never know the impact you have had.
That's beautiful. That is his legacy. He has certainly done that with his life. And look, all of the stories, but also I'm noticing all of the people that he has raised up to do the good work that is within them to do as well. And what a great example for all of us. And what a great inspiration. Thank you all so much for sharing your lives and your time and John's life with us.
Thank you for honoring him.
Thank you.
Thank you. It was fun to listen to you all. Thank you for that.
Thank you, everyone.
Join the caring power of the United Way of Weld County community. Visit unitedway-weld.org, where you can learn more about our projects, find great volunteer opportunities, and donate. Special thanks to our cornerstone partners, our leadership givers, and the many individuals who make our work and this podcast possible. The music you heard today is by Alex Productions. I'm Diana Smith, your host. Thank you again for listening to the Weld Together podcast. And until next time, be kind to yourself, be kind to others, and remember, even a little good can go a very long way.